Serve us, BTCH. Thugs harassed waitress in the diner, then 10 bikers walked in asterisk. The diner was nearly empty that night, the faint hum of the neon sign outside blending with the low clatter of dishes and the soft jazz playing from the old jukebox. Rain streaked down the windows in uneven rivulets, casting distorted reflections of the orange and green lights that flickered above the counter. It was the kind of night where the world outside felt distant and the warmth inside the diner was all that mattered. Maggie wiped down the counter for the 100th time, her movements automatic, practiced. She had worked at Mel's Diner for 5 years, a small-town establishment known for its greasy but comforting food, the kind of place where everyone knew your name, or at least your face. Her shift had been quiet, peaceful even, until the door slammed open with a sudden force, letting in a gust of cold wind and the unmistakable stench of trouble. 3 men strutted in, loud, brazen, and drunk on more than just alcohol. Their boots thumped against the checkered floor, echoing in the nearly empty room. Serve us, BTCH, one of them barked, slamming a hand on the counter. His friends laughed, crude, hollow sounds that made Maggie's stomach twist. She froze, forcing a smile, her hands clutching the rag so tightly it almost tore. Evening, what can I get you guys? Her voice was calm, but her knuckles were white. The first thug leaned over, his face inches from hers, breath smelling of cheap whiskey. Don't talk back, he sneered. You think we're here for coffee and pie? Nah, we're here to have a little fun. Maggie's heart pounded. She had seen drunk trouble before, but never this brazen, never this threatening. Her eyes darted to the small bell at the counter, the one meant to summon help, but in the deserted diner, there was no one to hear it. Look, please, just the menu, that's all, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The men smirked and grabbed her arm. The pinch was sharp, rough, and filled with menace. Serve us, BTCH, he repeated, louder this time. A sudden, heavy silence fell over the diner. It came from the back door, the one that led to the parking lot. And then the rumble began. Low, steady, like thunder rolling across the hills. Maggie's head snapped toward the sound, and her blood ran cold, not out of fear this time, but anticipation. 10 motorcycles roared into view, engines growling, and lights cutting through the darkness outside. Each bike was ridden by a man or woman whose presence alone commanded respect. Leather jackets, tattoos, scars, a symphony of raw intimidation and authority. The leader, a towering man with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to pierce through the chaos, dismounted first. He walked in with deliberate calm, the rest following behind him, forming a semicircle that encased the thugs like predators surrounding prey. Evening, folks, the leader said, voice low and steady. Not a trace of fear, not a hint of hesitation. His eyes locked on the men who had grabbed Maggie. Looks like you're bothering someone who doesn't deserve it. The thug laughed nervously, trying to regain his bravado. Who the hell are you supposed to be? Some biker clowns. Clowns. The leader's smile was thin and cold. No, we're the people who make sure clowns like you don't ruin a good night for everyone else. The air shifted. The diner, once a sanctuary of warm neon light and comfort food, felt electric, dangerous, alive. The thugs' laughter faltered. They looked at each other, unsure, sensing that whatever they were about to face was something far bigger than their drunken bravado. One of the bikers, a woman with a shaved head and a jagged scar across her cheek, leaned casually against the counter. You might want to leave before it gets ugly, she said, her voice deceptively soft. But in it was the weight of steel, the promise of consequences. The lead thug's bravado cracked, replaced by a flicker of panic. We were just having fun. Ain't no big deal. Maggie stood frozen behind the counter, watching. She wanted to cry, to scream, to thank these strangers who had walked into her nightmare. The rain continued outside, dripping off the neon sign and onto the pavement in rhythmic taps, like a drumbeat to the tense silence inside. Then, without warning, the biker leader moved. Not quickly, not violently, but with a calm efficiency that made the room hold its breath. He reached out and snapped the thug's wrist with a controlled twist. A sharp crack echoed, and the man fell to his knees, clutching his arm. The second thug lunged forward, but the scar-faced biker intercepted him, grabbing his collar and spinning him with a force that left him dazed and on the floor. The third tried to make a run for it toward the door, but the rest of the bikers formed a wall, blocking any escape. It wasn't brutal, it wasn't chaotic. It was precise, like a dance of dominance and control. Every movement had intent, every glance communicated authority. Maggie, still trembling, watched as the thug's bravado was stripped away, replaced with fear and submission. "You think this is fun," the leader said, his voice rising slightly. "You think it's funny to scare someone who's just trying to do their job? Not on my watch." The thug stammered, trying to apologize, trying to explain themselves, but no words could undo the humiliation, the fear, the realization that they were completely outmatched. When the police finally arrived, summoned anonymously by one of the bikers before they left, the thugs were sitting quietly, nursing bruised egos and arms. The officers looked bewildered at the scene, 10 bikers gone without a trace, a diner untouched aside from minor chaos, and a waitress who looked like she had survived a storm. Maggie sank into a booth, wrapping her arms around herself. Her voice was hoarse when she finally spoke. They saved me. I don't know how to thank them." A voice, soft and almost ghostly, whispered from the empty counter. "You just did," she said to herself, a small, shaky smile breaking through the adrenaline-fueled terror. In the weeks that followed, the story of that night spread like wildfire. The diner became a quiet sanctuary for locals, the neon sign outside casting its warm glow over regulars and strangers alike. And somewhere in the shadows of the town, 10 bikers, anonymous, untouchable, legends in their own right, rode past the rain, leaving behind a story of courage, justice, and unspoken heroism. Maggie never saw them again, but she felt their presence in every safe smile, every small act of kindness she witnessed afterward. And every time she looked at the parking lot outside, she remembered the rumble of engines, the calm authority of strangers who had refused to let cruelty go unchecked. The diner's jukebox played the same soft jazz every night, but for Maggie, the music now carried a new meaning, the memory of fear confronted, injustice challenged, and the quiet heroism of people who didn't need recognition, yet changed everything. And in her heart, she carried a simple, undeniable truth: sometimes, it takes 10 strangers on 10 motorcycles to remind the world that courage comes in many forms, and that standing up for what's right, no matter how small or how alone you feel, is always worth it.